All right, shalom, shalom. First off and foremost, as always, I want to say, Kol Halim La, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors being to the elder apostles of Great Millstone that do rule and teach well. And sincere shalom to you, Ankim, out there that's pushing this truth through the spirit, through the power, and through the name. Okay? Through the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. So this lesson is going to be titled Embrace the Grace. Okay? Embrace the grace that we've been given. You know, and you got Jake out here that they put the law on a pedestal. They put a fringe in front of Yahweh Shai, not knowing that Yahweh Shai, okay, you can't get to the Most High Yahweh without going to through Yahweh Shai first, okay? Because the scriptures say that Yahweh Shai is the door, he's the way. It don't say that fringes is the way, It don't say that a man is justified by wearing fringes or by following the law. It's by your faith, that we have in Yahweh Shai, okay? Because we're under grace, okay? So real quickly, I'm gonna get a couple precepts, and Lord's will, this lesson is edifying to the Lord's sincere sheep, okay? So we're gonna head in the book of, let's see here, Galatians 2, and let's see here, 2 and 16. I'm gonna jump down to verse 21. Galatians 2 and 16, it says, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, you see, but by the faith of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Okay, let's read it one more time. Galatians 2 and 16. Knowing that a man, okay, and what man, to be more particular, an Israelite man, okay? The Israelite man and the Israelite today are the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian, and the Israelites that look like other nations, the Israelite foreigners, but ultimately, we've all been scattered, okay? But not every Israelite is gonna look like, the typical, dark brown Jake, okay? And it says, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Even we have believed in Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, that we might be justified by the faith of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, and not by the works of the law, for by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. You see? So, now of course we don't now of course, we follow the laws to the best of our abilities, but we know, being that we're in captivity, that we can't keep all, every single law, to a T, okay? It's impossible. We're in captivity, like for example, if a woman is on her cycle, and say you had to ride a city bus or whatever the case may be, and a woman was on her cycle, okay, and you sat in the seat of that woman, not knowing she was sitting there. She got the bus, the previous stop, but then the next stop you got on and sat in that same seat. Just a quick example. But right there, if you sat in that same seat that she sat on while she's in her cycle, that would deem you unclean according to the law. You see? So, certain things in captivity, it's like you can't get around it. Even like, for example, working on the Sabbath. I had to work today. Today's the Sabbath. Today's the new moon. Had to work today, man. And do you think that I wanted to work on the Sabbath? No. But I know that we're in captivity, so it's like, I have to, I have to. I got to pay bills. The scriptures say that we're subject to payments. You see, but that's why going back again to the Yahweh Shai, that's why him dying for us, saved us. Okay, because it says Matthew 1:21. It says, "She shall bring forth the son, named Yahweh Shai, and he shall save his people." Okay, so we are justified by the faith that we have in Yahweh Shai, not by the faith. Not by the works of the law. Okay, because the works of the law. All right, actually, real quick, let's keep going because I'm gonna make a point. Galatians 2 and 21. I'm gonna skip down to verse 21 from verse 16, and it says, "I do not frustrate the grace of the Most High, for if righteousness come by the law, then Yahweh Shai Mashiach is dead in vain." You see, so if righteousness were to come by the law, if we had grace through the law, then that means that Yahweh Shai is dead in vain. Because what would be the point of Yahweh Shai going up in that cross for us and dying for us if we did the works of the law and that saved us? Okay, it makes no sense. Okay, it defeats the purpose of Yahweh Shai, being that sacrificial lamb for us. You see, but here it is. You have, Jakes, or certain Jakes in the community of Israel. Once again, mainly, you t-shirt fringe Israelite wearing groups. Okay, they push the law heavy, like real heavy, and it's like, damn. Well, here it is. You're in captivity, already under subjection, under Esau's laws. And here it is, you find out that you're a Jake, an Israelite, and you got to follow. Now, of course, we follow the laws, but I'm not saying that we don't. But I'm saying as far as, to the extent that they push it, wearing fringes everywhere you go. Okay, putting the law over Yahweh Shai. You name it. You bros know what I'm talking about. Okay, but here it is. We in captivity, and you mean to tell me instead of you preaching me the gospel about Yahweh Shai, you telling me about fringes? And that's one thing too. What is fringes gonna do for me in Jacob's trouble? Nothing. Okay, that's why we are justified by the faith that we have in Yahweh Shai, man, because that name is what is going to deliver us. It says that, pursuant to Acts 4 and 12, it says that no name under heaven is given among men whereby we must be saved. Okay, the only names that is, that strong tower is the names of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. You see, so embrace that grace, man. Okay, embrace that grace. All right, don't frustrate the grace, but embrace it. Okay, take advantage of the grace period that we've been given. That's mercy. It's really mercy that we're able to preach this word. It's mercy that we're able to be woken up spiritually to know who we are. As a people, to know who the true names of our God is. So it's really a blessing, man. But like I said, you got some Jakes out here that put the law in front of Yahweh Shai. Okay? So real quickly, this is John 14 and 6. John 14 and 6, and it says, Yahweh Shai saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Okay? And you have a lot of Israelites out here that only they only say praises to the Most High. They say praises to Yahweh, but they don't mention Yahweh Shai. You see, that makes no damn sense. Okay, Yahweh gave Yahweh Shai power to judge, and forgive sins, and Yahweh Shai said, if you see me, you've seen the Father. All right. So these certain Jakes out here that are just giving the Most High praise, which of course you do he has all the glory. You know, he's given, you know, he deserves all the glory. But also too, it's Yahweh Shai as well. You know, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. That's why it says, I believe in John, it says, my name is in his name. Okay, loosely paraphrasing that. All right, it says, I believe also too in the book of Proverbs, it says, what is his name and what is his son's name, if thou can tell. Okay, so that proves that Yahweh Shai is important. We need Yahweh Shai. He's our mediator. Okay, and without that mediator, okay, we'll be through. All right, like, you know, and everything I'm saying is in the scriptures, man. You know, it's not nothing that I'm making up. Okay, these are all in the scriptures. All right. So real quick, this is John 14:6. One more time, it says, Yahweh Shai said unto him, I am the way. Okay, not the law. Okay, and if you want to be technical, Yahweh Shai is the law. He's the word. All right, it says the word was made flesh. All right, and it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. You see? So when guys say the law, fringes. Well, what about Yahweh Shai? Okay, dudes that, you know, just push the law, you know, they gotta watch guys like that. Now, of course, you know, you may have, you know, you got sincere Jakes out here that are amongst these camps. Okay, but ultimately the point what I'm getting at is, you know, Yahweh Shai matters. You know, you have to embrace the grace. Okay, and if you don't embrace the grace, then, you know, you just kicking against the pricks. All right, what's the point of you being, you know, in this truth and not calling upon Yahweh Shai? Okay, that's mind-boggling to me. You know, and me myself, I can't even, you know, imagine that. You know, so that goes to show that, you know, Yahweh Shai is worthy to be praised. Okay, real quick, let's get this. This is Ephesians 5 and verse 16. It says, redeem the time. I'm sorry, 15. Ephesians 5:15. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. Right? Because we're living in dangerous times. You know, we're living in the time of the end. Okay, and everything is ramping up. Bro, you know, prophetic events are happening. You know, you just had what's that? The No Kings protests. You know, in Babylon, over across, you know, the U.S. You know, and what's that bringing? Division. This kingdom is divided. You know, and like Yahweh Shai said, a kingdom divided cannot stand. Okay, so things are happening. You know, MOTB is ramping up. You know, World War III. Okay, so we're living in very, very, very perilous times. Okay, and also too, you know, that's beautiful that we're living in times like this, because, you know, that's why the names of the Lord are so important. All right, because, you know, in that day of trouble, the law is not gonna, you know, save you. Okay, but having faith in the names of Yahweh Shai will, of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai will. You see? Verse 16, it says, redeem the time because the days are evil. You see? Redeem the time because the days are evil. So like I was saying earlier, take advantage of this grace period, man. You know, because it's going to come a time when all hell breaks loose, and this world won't be, you know, so, you know, easily accessible. Okay? So, you know, ultimately, man, you know, embrace the grace. You know, take advantage of the grace. You know, and you know, and continue to believe in Yahweh Shai. Okay, because the ones that don't believe, you know, they're condemned. Okay, but the ones that do believe, you know, you're not condemned. You know, it's a blessing that we believe in Yahweh Shai. Okay, Yahweh Shai matters, man. All right. So with that being said, I want to say Kol Halam La Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Kakwadash. The Balans being two, the elder apostles of Great Millstone that do rule and teach well. And a shalom to you, Ankim, out there that's pushing his truth through the spirit, through the power, and through the name of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rachakwadash. And with that being said,